Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com.
You're listening to the Corbett Report. CorbettReport.com.
All right, friends, welcome back to Corbett Report Radio. Welcome back. I'm your host, James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, coming to you, as always, from the sunny climes of Western Japan, where it is currently Tuesday, the 25th of September, 2012. For those of you stateside and everywhere else, thank you once again for tuning in for tonight's edition of the broadcast. And just before we get into the broadcast proper, I'd just like to pick up from where we left off on Friday night, where I was giving away, I was giving away free copies of my new DVD. That's called The Last Word, and it's a compilation of 7 episodes of the Last Word video commentary series that I did in 2011. And on Friday night's edition of the broadcast, I gave away, it was supposed to be 1 free copy, but I actually had 3 respondents within a few minutes of each other. So rather than be a stickler, I decided to give a free copy to each of them. So congratulations to Dave, Doug, and Glenn. And both Doug and Glenn are in Oregon. So Oregon well represented out in the listening audience. Once again, if you're interested, there's more information on CorbettReport.com, and I am getting the first batch ready to ship out right after I go off air. So I will be sending out emails once your order has shipped out, just to confirm that. Once again, all the details are there on CorbettReport.com, and all the videos are available for free viewing online, so there's no obligation to purchase, but your purchases do help to keep this media coming. And on that note, speaking of independent media and media worth subscribing to, we have on the line with us tonight Kerry Lutz of the Financial Survival Network at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And listeners might remember we had him on, I believe, 1 or 2 months ago here on the broadcast, but it's always good to have him back on. He's a wealth of information on so many different subjects, and if you're not subscribed to the Financial Survival Network podcast, you are missing out on a ton of financial information. I don't know how you do it all, Kerry. You're a man of many talents and many, many interviews, so my hat's off to you for all the work that you're doing there, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, James, thanks for having me back on again. I mean, God, there's so much happening. And, I think you appreciate it. And I think if you're alive right now and you're living through this, you appreciate the fact that things are happening so quickly. There is no way to really keep track of everything. You need a multitude of sources, which means you need to be listening to James. You need to be going to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You need to be going to a lot of different places, getting as many different views as you can, because none of us, I think you'll concede that, James, have all the answers. If we're lucky, we have a few, and you need to have an open mind, and you need to really prepare for the global reset. If we're lucky, a global reset that's coming down the pike. It's getting closer and closer.
Well, as much as I'd like to be able to claim omnipotence, I think I'll have to forswear that for the time being. And yes, absolutely, I concur. No one can keep their eyes on all of the balls that are being thrown at us. So at any rate, let's focus in tonight on what's happening in the macroeconomic sphere. But not only so much happening there, but I understand there's a lot happening even in your own personal life right now. You've just gotten back from a conference. You're preparing to move. A lot going on at the Lutz household right now, I guess.
Oh, God, it's nonstop. I mean, I was at the Chicago Hard Assets Conference, also known as Hard Assets Chicago, and there were all sorts of mining companies there. Happily, the ones that are left are much more optimistic and upbeat and much more realistic in their prospects of producing metals. which we're all going to need a virtually unlimited supply of. And yeah, I'm getting ready to move the studio down to Florida for the winter at least, to a warmer climate, and get to do some swimming and biking through the winter, and I can hardly wait,
Sounds nice. I'm jealous.
So
I'll be freezing my little assets off here in Japan in a cold, no central heating house. But on that note, let's just take a short break. We're coming up against our first break. We'll be right back once again tonight talking to Kerry Lutz of FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. All right, friends, welcome back to the program. Here we are on this Monday night edition of Corbett Report Radio. We're talking to Kerry Lutz of the Financial Survival Network. Once again, that's FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. And it's a one-stop resource of information on all things related to economics, finance, and investment. So I hope you will check it out if you haven't done so yet. Once again, I can't stress how many different audio interviews are coming out on a daily basis there. It's enough for to fill anyone's plate with all sorts of information, and on all sorts of different aspects related to the ongoing global economic collapse. And as Kerry was just saying there before the break, there is so much going on that it's impossible to keep our eyes on everything, but it's difficult to even know where to begin. But Kerry, let's start with that hard assets conference that you were just attending in Chicago, and what you saw there, and what the mood of the people there was.
Well, it's interesting. This is the first time they've had a Chicago Hard Assets Conference. So there wasn't a lot of attendees there, but I have to tell you, amazingly enough, 10, 15 people came up to me who were listeners of FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com and of the Corbett Report also. A lot of your fans were out there because I said, what other shows do you listen to? And we went down a list. I said, what about James Corbett? And most of them were listeners as well. The caliber of company, because it's kind of like what's happened in the junior mining sector, is that the herd has been thinned. A lot of the marginal companies, the companies that really had little or no ability to find and exploit a resource, either to develop it themselves or to sell it off to a major, they have been eliminated. They're in dormancy. Very few of them have actually gone out of business. They're praying for better times ahead for the juniors. But what's happened is that the companies that were left there, almost 90% of them, I would say, were high-caliber junior miners. And the people running these companies now, they've seen often 20% or higher run-up in share prices on the UE and the miners, unhedged miners index. All this has happened since we spoke last, so there's a lot more optimism in the mining sector, and that's because gold and silver have taken off, and they're up high 1700s. Silver's back over $34 an ounce after having been rated today, and they tried to get it under 34, but it's back over 34. And whether you believe in the rigging of the markets or not, you have to notice that there's patterns in the precious metals markets have really changed over the past 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It's gone to a much more bullish formation, and this is the season where gold and silver go up. And once silver breaks 35, I'm of the opinion, a lot of my guests are of the opinion, that that's a major resistance point that will be taken out, and you will shortly see silver hit new highs, gold as well. I mean, they both are perfectly poised, and I don't think there's anything that's going to stop them. Will it happen in a month, 2 months, or 6 months? I can't predict that. I don't think anyone can. But you got to feel that it's going to happen. I mean, since we talked, we have QE3 come in, which is just, we're not going to have a QE4 because this QE3 is ongoing, consistent, regular purchases. And my feeling is there will be escalating purchases of government-backed securities, government securities directly issued by the federal government, by the Federal Reserve. That has to lead to more inflation. Certainly it is an undermining of faith in the various governments around the world. And all of this is happening now. That's why I say so much is going on. Middle East blowing up, everything else. You just can't keep track of it. I mean, I try to do my best, like you during the day, James, but how do you know what's going to happen next? How can you tell? It's just so volatile and so in flux.
It's absolutely right. So let's dwell on the mining stock issue for a moment, because I myself don't play the markets, and I'm not really interested in it. But if I was going to be investing in the markets, I would probably be looking at gold mining stocks, junior mining stocks, as a potential investment because of the discrepancy between the rise in gold price we've seen over the past few years versus the lack of rise in mining stocks. What do you think is behind that discrepancy, and do you see an investment opportunity there?
Yeah, well, without getting into tinfoil hat stuff and manipulated markets, which we just have to accept, manipulation, control of the markets is just a fact of life nowadays. But the other thing is that this run-up of gold and silver, I mean, look, you go back to 2000, I bought my first gold, I think in 1999, or early 2000. I paid $282 an ounce. Not that I'm a genius. I just had the opportunity. Somebody had some gold. They wanted cash for it. And I said, you know what? You never know. Silver was $4 or $5 the ounce. Now, here we are. We're 12, 13 years later. Gold is at $1,770 an ounce. Silver's over $34 an ounce. So you've seen silver go up almost ninefold, and you've seen gold go up just about sixfold, probably about sixfold. And, you know, the amount of skepticism that this bull market in precious metals has been met with, people just don't believe that it can happen. And, you know, these miners are not followed by Wall Street. You know, at this conference, there were virtually no analysts there from the major brokerage companies. And that leaves not a lot of financing. There's not a lot of places to go for cash when they need it. And then the other thing is regulations have changed. And now everything you need to know about miners pretty much gets published on their websites. So there's no big major dog and pony shows like there once was before they required this 43-101 drilling sample, where all samples taken from a mine, in order for you to be able to be allowed to mention them in your press releases, in your public filings, have to be analyzed in a certain means, and everything is regulated. So the mining stocks kind of lost a bit of their sparkle by these new regulations, which these regulations are very good. They really do protect people. They give an added layer of transparency to the function, the way these mining companies function and raise capital. And I do believe they keep out some marginal operators. But, you know, in the final analysis, James, you have to protect yourself. And that means that you need to be watching these companies and analyzing them and following certain analysts who, I believe, really know what they're doing. For instance, any company that I saw at that conference, and there were a lot of them, that Eric Sprott Resources, Rick Rule invested in, I know those companies, that gives them an added level of credibility. So when you see these really well-heeled investors putting money into these stocks, you know that eventually the value will be realized. For instance, one company I interviewed last week, Banks Island Gold, they're trading for the equivalent of $5 an ounce in the ground. And that is just a fraction, a piddly amount of what the gold is actually worth once they get it out. And they have a proven resource that is going to be producing in a matter of months, if not a year. So there's been a lot of misunderstandings about the sector, and people have been burned in this sector over the years to the point where, just like the rest of the market, the public has dropped out.
Exactly right. But as you say, there's more transparency now, and there's some signs that there's some big moves to be made. What do you think about playing the markets in general? I mean, I just don't have the money to play with that, so whatever little savings I have, I'm plowing straight into precious metals, to physical precious metals. But what do you think about people who are wondering about the markets in general? Obviously, in times of great destabilization, there's also ups and downs where profits can be made. What do you think about playing those markets?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because I am always grappling with it, James, because the easiest thing is, and understand, I always have to say this in the U.S. because these are our stupid laws. I'm not a financial analyst. If you listen to me, you're definitely going to lose all your money. I'm not giving you advice, period, and you'd be an idiot to listen to me even if you thought I was. But, with all that stuff out of the way, look, my personal thing is, have a core precious metals holding, secure it away from your home. That is super important, and I've got ways of doing that. And then if you have some money left over, if you're well-heeled enough to be able to have a portfolio, put some into to funds that actually own the metal. Guys like CEF, like the Sprott funds, and I don't get anything from any of these people, no stock sponsorships, but then if you've got 5 or 10% left of your portfolio and you've got all the gold and silver that you need, and that's a subjective individual thing, like James, you have to determine how much gold, how much silver you want to own, what form you want to own it in. That's really important, because look, a kilo bar costs you $50,000, and it's going to be real hard to buy a loaf of bread with the equivalent of $50,000, whereas if you have a roll of pre-1965 dimes that are 90% silver, a dime will probably buy you an ounce of bread no matter what happens to the world. After you take all that into consideration, if you still have some surplus funds, if you have a cash flow coming in from other sources, good job or whatever, then you consider playing the miners, because they give tremendous leverage. When you can buy the equivalent of gold at $5 the ounce in the ground, and it's not even, James, it's not even in there very deeply. It's a shallow mine. It's an open pit mine. They're just going to take it out, and it's in Canada. I mean, then why not?
It seems like a steal on every level, doesn't it? All right, we're up against another break. We'll be right back after these messages. All right, friends, welcome back. Welcome back to Corbett Report Radio. I'm your host, James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. Tonight we are talking to Kerry Lutz of the Financial Survival Network, and if you just put a .com on the end of that, you will get his website, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, where, as I say, there's so many interviews coming out on a daily basis on all sorts of matters, financial, economic, social, and otherwise. And for those of you who are subscribed to the Financial Survival Network podcast, you might have noticed that yours truly, James Corbett, was a guest recently. Kerry was good enough to have me on. We talked a little bit about the Corbett Report and how I got started in all of this media. So if you haven't checked that out, you might want to check that out in the archives there at the Financial Survival Network. But Kerry, let me turn the tables on you and use my opportunity at this end of the mic to ask you about the Financial Survival Network and how you got started with this, and really what prompted you along the road to starting your own media outlet.
Well, it's really funny, James. My second day of college, actually it was my first day of college, second class, was a speech teacher, and we each had to do a brief public speech that we just made up on the fly. And I always loved public speaking. And she listened to me and said, "Oh, you have a beautiful voice. You could be on radio." And I'm thinking, I don't think so. I think the average DJ in the mid-1970s made $15,000 a year, and they didn't get much respect. I remember my father making fun of the DJ that he's just spinning records and talking to himself. And it just didn't seem like anything I'd want to do, but it really put a bug in my ear. And then talk radio took off. And talk radio, it was always around in New York, kind of started here on a fringe station, and my father used to listen to it, and I got into it. And then one day I said, I could do that. And it was on my bucket list of things to do by the time I hit 55. And I always figured they'd never let me on the radio. I would have to go buy a radio station, which I figured I'd put together an investor group and just do it. And then this thing, the internet, came out where anybody could be on the radio who wanted to be. So I started with a terrestrial show talking about how to fix your credit and get back in the credit system. But my heart was always in precious metals, mining, resources, and preparing for this economic collapse that to me was all but inevitable, and nothing's happened to change my view of that. And I just started doing a show once a week, and then I said, if I really want to get good at this, if I really want to connect with people and really get the message out there, I have to be doing this a lot more. Then my association with the company I was doing the credit consulting for ended. And then I said, this is my opportunity. If I don't do it now, and I was 52 then or 53, if I don't do it now, I am never going to do it. And, I started with equipment like you. I had this thing called a blue snowball mic, total piece of garbage, hooked up to my Mac with the GarageBand, and I didn't even know how to write a segment, let alone read it. And my first shows, which are on iTunes, you could hear them, but I prefer you didn't. I really not proud of them, but I am proud that I kept doing it, even though I was so terrible. And after about 50 or 60 of them, like, hey, I think I can do this thing. And then I upgraded my equipment, my software, all the tools, the microphone, and before you knew it, I sounded like a pro. And I kept doing the terrestrial show because I just enjoy live radio of people calling in and just people hearing me, connecting with me live. But, I started, our mutual departed friend, Bob Chapman. I sent him an email that said I had been communicating with him anyway about mining stocks, about gold and silver, the economy. I said, hey, would you be a guest on my show? And he was so gracious. Without any hesitation, he said yes. And that turned into a friendship. He was on every couple of weeks. And then, John Rubino over at Dollar Collapse. And then I said, I can go ask anyone to be on the show. The worst they'll do is say no.
Part 2 is available to subscribers of FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. Go there now, sign up, and enjoy.